Australia is once again confronting the painful question of gun violence after a deadly attack at one of its most iconic locations shocked the nation and drew international attention. The sound of waves in celebration at Sydney's Bondi Beach was shattered when gunfire erupted at a Jewish festival, killing 15 people and injuring dozens more. What should have been a moment of community and cultural pride instead became the country's deadliest mass shooting in decades, and a turning point that has now prompted sweeping changes to Australia's gun laws. Authorities quickly declared the attack a terrorist incident, saying investigators believe the gunmen were motivated by extremist ideology. As details emerged, the nation was forced to confront how such an attack could occur in a country seen as a global model for gun control. Police allege the shooting was carried out by a father and son acting together. The son has since been charged with 59 offenses, including 15 counts of murder and 1 count of committing a terrorist act. His father was killed during the attack. Investigators say the case is one of the most complex terrorism investigations Australia has faced in recent years. In the days following the attack, grief spread across the country. Vigils were held in cities and towns, flags were lowered, and religious leaders from different faiths gathered to condemn violence and express solidarity with the victims. Hundreds of surfers paddled out at Bondi Beach in a silent tribute, forming a circle on the water to honor those who lost their lives. Amid the mourning, pressure mounted on political leaders to act. Within 24 hours of the shooting, Australia's National Cabinet, which includes the Prime Minister along with state and territory leaders, convened an emergency meeting. The outcome was a clear signal that the government intended to respond decisively. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced that Australia would introduce a new national gun buyback scheme, describing it as the largest since the landmark reforms that followed the 1996 Port Arthur massacre. That massacre, which left 35 people dead in Tasmania, transformed Australia's approach to firearms. It led to the National Firearms Agreement, strict licensing requirements, and a compulsory buyback that removed hundreds of thousands of guns from circulation. For decades afterwards, Australia experienced a dramatic decline in mass shootings. However, the Prime Minister said new realities have emerged. There are now more than 4 million firearms in Australia, Albanese said, noting that this number is higher than it was at the time of Port Arthur. We know that one of the attackers held a firearms license and owned multiple guns, despite living in the middle of a major city. There is no justification for that. Officials confirmed that the new buyback scheme will allow the government to purchase surplus, newly banned and illegal firearms from private owners. The collected weapons will be permanently destroyed. The scheme will be jointly funded by the federal government and the states and territories, with costs split evenly. Authorities estimate that hundreds of thousands of firearms could be removed from circulation under the program. Australian Federal Police Commissioner Chrissy Barrett said, reducing the overall number of guns in the community is a critical part of preventing future attacks. If you are serious about reducing gun violence, reducing the number of guns must be part of the solution, she said. But the buyback is only one part of a broader reform package. The National Cabinet also agreed to impose limits on the number of firearms any one individual can own, a move aimed at preventing stockpiling. Open-ended firearms licenses will be restricted, and the types of guns that can be legally owned will be further narrowed. In a significant change, Australian citizenship will become a requirement for holding a firearms license. Supporters of the measure say it strengthens accountability, while critics argue it could unfairly exclude long-term residents. The government also announced plans to accelerate the creation of a national firearms register. Until now, gun records have been maintained separately by states and territories, making it difficult for police to track weapons across borders. Under the new system, firearm regulators will have improved access to criminal intelligence and real-time data. At the same time, police addressed public concern about a separate counter-terrorism operation carried out days after the Bondi attack. Tactical officers detained a group of men in Sydney's southwest after intelligence suggested they held extremist views and were planning to visit several high-profile locations, including Bondi Beach, New South Wales. Police later said there was no confirmed link between the detained men and the Bondi attackers. The group was released without charge, though authorities stressed they would continue to be monitored. Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon said officers were not prepared to tolerate any level of risk given the heightened threat environment following the attack. While the specific threat posed by these individuals remains unclear, the potential for violence was significant enough that we acted immediately, he said. The events have reignited debate across Australia about the balance between civil liberties, public safety, and counter-terrorism measures. While many Australians support stricter gun laws, some groups have raised concerns about the speed of the reforms and their long-term impact. Gun control advocates, however, argue the response is both necessary and overdue. They point to Australia's history as evidence that decisive action can save lives. International observers are also watching closely. Australia's gun laws have often been cited by other countries as a successful model, and the latest reforms could once again influence global debates on firearm regulation. For now, the country remains in mourning, with funerals continuing and investigations ongoing. The government has promised transparency as details of the buyback scheme are finalized and legislation is drafted. Prime Minister Albanese said the goal is clear too: prevent another tragedy like Bondi Beach from ever happening again. This is about protecting lives, he said. It's about learning from the past and acting responsibly for the future. More details on the gun buyback scheme and broader security measures are expected to be announced in the coming days.